What's up, adventurers? My name is Platinum Phoenix, and welcome back to Pokemon FireRed. Last time, we recovered the sapphire that the scientists stole from us and took out the rest of Team Rocket. And this time, we are actually going to be finishing up our exploration of the Sevii Islands with the Sevii Island. So let's go ahead and get into it. And here on the mainland, there is again, literally one house. I don't know why these towns are so small, but let's go ahead and go talk to whoever's in here. I may not look like much now, but when I was younger, I flew everywhere, challenging trainers whenever I found them. Now, my only source of enjoyment is reminiscing about the past while watching battles. Well, that does actually tie into what this island's all about. I actually want to, I believe, just walk over here, because right here, hidden in this patch of grass, is a Nanab berry. And that is a trainer, so I'm going to do my best to avoid... Actually, no, I want to fight her. Because there is one new Pokemon to go over here, which is Mantine. Mantine is actually a Leaf Green exclusive, and is a pretty decent special defensive tank. It has a pretty good typing for tanking, only having 2 weaknesses in rock and electric. Electric being 4 times, so all you have to really do is avoid those 2 types, and it takes hits pretty well. It also has 2 really decent abilities, Swift Swim making it a really fast Pokemon in the rain, and Water Absorb just making it completely immune to water types, meaning that you can just switch into any water type move you think is coming, and just take the hit. And the last thing to go over with Mantine is that it has really good moves, actually. It learns a lot of good moves through level up and a lot of good moves through TMs and HMs, learning like Surf through HMs and getting Rain Dance to do the Swift Swim ability at all through TMs. But it also learns like Return. I believe it can learn Earthquake. It gets Aerial Ace for its flying type move. It can learn Bubble Beam and Water Pulse through leveling up. It can learn just a lot of pretty decent moves for a water flying type. And now we just have a Hypno to take out. Now that we have finished going over Mantine. Also, one more thing about Mantine. It has a pre-evolve form in Mantike, which you can get in this game if you have, I believe, the Sea Incense. You can give it to a Mantine and breed it, and it'll produce a Mantike instead of just another Mantine. But with that being said, I just going to put on a repel. Alright, now with the repel on, our first destination of the day is right across this water, which is, you know, sort of a short surf. But right up here is the Trainer Tower. And if we go inside, welcome to the battle facility of this game. The Trainer Tower is basically just a place to go if you want to do just a bunch of fights in a row. And I'm not actually going to show any fights because they're pretty long form and I don't need any of the items that they produce. But to go over them, there are 4 modes that you can do in this place. The 4 modes are single mode, which allows you to fight 8 single battles all in a row with each of the trainers having 2 Pokemon each. There's double mode, which is 8 double battles in a row with each trainer having 1 Pokemon, meaning you're fighting the same amount of Pokemon just in double battles. The knockout mode, which is 8 floors, and each floor has 3 trainers in a row, each with 1 Pokemon, and you have to fight 3 battles in a row without healing on each floor in order to do that. And then there is mixed mode, which has some single battles, some double battles, and some knockout battles mixed throughout the 8 floors that you have to go through. And each of the different modes actually gives you different rewards. So single mode gives you an upgrade, which allows you to give it to a Porygon and trade it to evolve it. We actually got an upgrade last episode in the Rocket Warehouse. The double mode gives you a Dragon Scale, which allows you to give it to a Seadra and then trade it to get a Kingdra. There is the knockout mode that gives you a Metal Coat, like we also got last episode, that you could give an Onix to turn it into a Steelix upon trading, or a Scyther to get a Scizor upon trading. And then the last one is the mixed mode, which gives you a King's Rock, which can be given to a Poliwhirl to trade and get a Politoed, or a Slowpoke to get a Slowking. But that is pretty much everything to go over for the Trainer Tower. There's really just the 4 modes, and I believe every time you complete the 8 floors, you get the same items. So next up, if we head south out of Sevii Island, we could talk to this guy, and not many people come out here. If I train here, I'm convinced that I'll get stronger and stronger. Yep, stronger and stronger. How would you like to learn a move like that? It's Sword Stance. I'm not going to learn it, but Sword Stance is an amazing move for any physical attacker, because what it does is when you use it, it increases the it doubles the Pokemon's attack stat. So it raises it by 2 stages each time you use it. So you can use it 3 times and go up to the maximum of 6 stages increased for the Pokemon's attack stat, which is insane for several Pokemon to use. But now that we are down here in the canyon entrance, there is one more new Pokemon to go over, and that is Phanpy. Phanpy actually becomes a really good physical attacker with a lot of defense, both its attack and defense being 120 base. And it gets some pretty decent moves through all of the modes. It learns Earthquake through leveling up, which is a great boon. But it also learns like Iron Tail, Rollout, Hyper Beam, and Return to just have really solid coverage in the physical attacking department. But that's kind of where the upsides of Phanpy end. Phanpy's ability is Pickup, which is a pretty good ability. But once it evolves, it gets the bad version of Sturdy in this game, which is just not a good ability, and it's the only ability that Donphan can ever have in this game, which just makes it pretty awful. And on top of that, Phanpy can only be caught up to level 15, and it evolves at level 25. So you are, at the very least, leveling it up 10 times in order to get it into a Donphan. So it's kind of hard to recommend and kind of hard to, well, use in general. So I would kind of avoid it if possible. And next up is this island is too spread out. It's not easy patrolling this place. Alright, I went ahead and skipped that fight because it's not a required fight. And if we go down here, there's these two, which I believe are both trainers, but they're kind of just tucked in a corner, which is kind of weird. So I'm just going to try to avoid this Picticker as well, and we are going to head down. We are going to run out of a repel, so we'll put another one on. Alright, now with our another repel on, we have entered the Sea Vault Canyon, which has several new Pokemon in it. 3 to be exact. And the first one is Marowak. And I need to come clean about Marowak. Technically, you can find it a lot sooner than this. It is on every floor of the Victory Road, meaning that even with I believe it only being a 5% chance to find it in all of those floors, it can very easily be found there. So this is me making an addendum. It's not really a new Pokemon here, but other than that, it has a 5% chance of being found with the Thick Club, which allows it to double its attack stats, which is really nice for it to have and would really be recommended to try to find one with a Thick Club. But other than that, it's a decent physical attacker and it learns pretty good level up moves and TMs. Learning like Boomerang, Return, Hyper Beam, Earthquake. I believe it can even learn Iron Tail. So it gets some pretty good moves and is a decent option, especially if you're trying to catch it in the Victory Road. But next up is Skarmory. And Skarmory is actually the FireRed exclusive that is the counterpart of Mantine that we were just talking about. But Skarmory is actually a defensive tank, having really high defenses at 140 base defenses, which is really good, especially for a steel type to have. Not to mention, it being a steel flying type gives it 11 resistances, which is just insane. That's over half of the types in this game. So, on top of it having really good defenses, it has really good typing to take care of those defenses, so it just doesn't take damage from anything really. And it has a pretty okay move pool, learning both Steel Wing and Aerial Ace, which are basically its best stab attacks that it gets. But next up after Skarmory is Larvitar. And Larvitar is the second Pseudo-Legendary you can find in this game. And coincidentally, my favorite Pseudo-Legendary. Larvitar eventually evolves into Tyranitar, which is a physical attacking monster. It is insane how high its attack stat is. And it also becomes a Rock Dark type, which gives it a few more really good resistances and immunities, like its immunity to Psychic types in this game, which is really good. It also has an amazing level up moveset, learning moves like Earthquake, Rock Slide, Crunch, Thrash, and Hyper Beam, all through leveling up, which is just insane to think about, especially when talking about like the other Pokemon I've been talking about. Like Skarmory gets Steel Ring, which is I guess good, not compared to Rock Slide, Earthquake, and Hyper Beam though. The only real downside that I can tell you about is that since you catch it at level 15 at the most, it takes forever for it to become a Tyranitar. It takes forever for it to become a Pupitar even. But it's just so hard to raise, especially this late in the game, that it's kind of hard to recommend. But if you get it and you raise it, it becomes a monster. And it's like one of the highest recommendations I can give a Pokemon. But with that being said, we have defeated Evan here. You're a master at this. I know, I am the Pokemon master. And I actually want to run back because I skipped this little cave here while talking about those Pokemon. And this cave is the Tanobi Key, which is a strength puzzle. So I'm just going to show you how to do this strength puzzle real quick, because it's important to something we're going to go over really soon. So to solve this middle rock literally just gets pushed all the way up into that space. Then you want to walk down here and push this one up, and then you would need to walk around to push it in its correct place. And then you do the exact same thing to this one, except you have a little bit more leniency with this one because both of the sides are open. And then these are not as tricky. You just need to push the two bottom ones aside, and then you take these two and you push them all the way up against these rocks. And then you can go in between them and just push them to both sides. And then you jump down this ledge and you just push these up into their place. And that is how we solve this rock strength puzzle. And a mysterious rumble echoed somewhere far away. And that's all the Tanabe key holds for us right now. We need to go onwards to actually see what there is to do with it. I actually want to talk to this guy. Training by oneself is certainly not a bad thing, but it also is not bad to aim for the top with a partner. Even Bruno, he trained with a fellow by the name of Brawly before. Well, Brawly is an interesting name. Brawly is actually the fighting type gym leader in the Hoenn region, which makes sense why it's being talked about here because this is technically a Gen 3 game. I'm going to try to avoid this guy. Of course, 2 steps in without a repel and I immediately get caught by a Pokemon. But we can go in here and just rob this guy blind, I guess. And that is a Lucky Punch, which I believe increases the critical hit rate of a Chansey if you give it that held item. But what does this guy have? Dance, dance, Chansey dance. You join in too. Dance, dance. Would you like to dance? Sure, we'll dance. So this guy counts as a Pokemon Center, but only if you dance with him, which I think is very funny. It's very humorous. But now we just need to run even farther south to the Tanabe Ruins, and I'm going to put on a repel. And I'm actually not going to go over the entirety of the Tanabe Ruins, and it'll be explained why very quickly. So, as you can see, while you're surfing, there's all these different ruins around that you can see, but I'm only going to go into one of them because they all hold the exact same thing. So this is the Rixie Chamber. And there is one new Pokemon in every single one of these ruins. And I bet if you've ever played a Pokemon game, you could probably guess what that Pokemon is. So the new Pokemon is Unknown. And Unknown is very much a gimmick Pokemon. Unknown has one different version of itself for every letter of the alphabet, as well as a question mark and an exclamation point. On top of that, Unknown only learns one move, being Hidden Power, meaning it doesn't really get to take advantage of being a Psychic type in this game, unless it gets Psychic type Hidden Power. It's also incredibly weak, having just terrible stats, and in total is just my least favorite gimmick Pokemon. It holds almost no purpose besides being a collectible, which is basically its best use. In games like Platinum and in Legends Arceus, it actually has a use for being collected, but in this game, it literally is just to collect all of them, and that's your reward, is to have, what, 28 unknowns in your box? It's just not a good reward. And to end it off, I'm actually going to read a little paragraph from my strategy website that I use, strategywiki.org, that says, essentially, while Unknown is a strange Pokemon, it'll provide little use to any team. Which I think is just fitting. But with Unknown gone over, we are just going to fly back to the main part of Sevii Island and actually head back to the mainland of Kanto. So I'm going to meet you back in Kanto. Alright, back in Vermilion City, there is actually only one place I want to go. And I want to use fly because it'll be faster, so we are just going to fly directly north. We are heading over to Cerulean City, because our next topic, or next place of interest, I guess I should say, is that little cave over there. But I think I'm going to save that till next time. So, I hope that everyone enjoyed watching. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Next time, we take on Cerulean Cave. But until then, happy adventuring.